Hollywood, California. With me is someone that's actually not a free agent for Major League Soccer, although you would think based on the background behind him right now, you know him as Pro GK Academy, Omar Zeenni. Omar, it looks like you're on the transfer market, sir.
I wish, man. I wish. That's probably one reason why I didn't want to ever go pro. And now that I understand what like being pro is they shop you around, man. I've been watching the NBA free agency, and it's really it's mind-boggling. Poor guys, you know. I'm sure Bobby can attest to that.
It has its pros and its cons.
It does, yeah.
And that voice you're hearing right there, making his triumphant return to Inside the 18 in a much more better political climate right now, let's just say, in social climate. The one and only Bobby Edwards, who recently just played for FC Cincinnati in Major League Soccer. Bobby, thanks for showing us your illustrious goalkeeper jersey and regular field player jersey collection behind you right there, man. That's solid.
No, listen, thanks for having me on the show. And I figured it was the least I could do to make it some sort of, aesthetic to the conversation here. I didn't want just a blank wall. I'm not as crafty, though, as Omar with the whole digital background. Got to do old school.
I'd rather have that, honestly. I'd rather do what you're doing.
What were you editing, Omar?
You'll see right now. I'm putting it together. It's another thing for Bobby, but I was running low on time. But you'll see it right now in about 3 seconds. No, 3 seconds, like 2 minutes. Just keep going with the show, and then you'll see.
Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of Bobby right now, let's just kind of catch up the audience a little bit, because last time we had you on the show, basically, you guys were still in quarantine. There was no MLS's back tournament taking place. There was no regular season taking place. I don't even know if you guys were even training yet. I think you guys might have still been in the situation where you guys were in lockdown. So why don't you catch up kind of the audience, who might not be familiar, what happened, what transpired after that lovely, what was it, May or June? Maybe late May or something?
Yeah, it's around that time. I think it was, May. And we were pretty much just on lockdown like everybody else was. It was kind of right in the beginning of things, and it was definitely difficult, but we slowly got back to transitioning into training at the facility. So we started with individual workouts, which were brutal. They were really, really terrible in terms of just like what we could do. It was very limited. We would just show up into our gear. We'd have our temperature checked, and then we'd all go to our own little portion sections of the field and like literally do individual workouts where like we couldn't pass with each other. We couldn't serve the ball. It was all just, different kind of things that we would use individually. So Jack did a really fantastic job with able to set up sessions that still were beneficial. It wasn't just us going out there just to go out there, but actually getting something out of it, and then just making do with what we could do, because obviously the limitations were pretty rigid in terms of what we could do. So it was good to kind of just get back into the rhythm of things, set up a routine of getting into training. But we did that for, I want to say, about like 3 weeks. And honestly, that was almost like another preseason. It was a lot of, fitness-based things, which were good, but kind of getting the dust shaken off and stuff. But then we slowly transitioned into full team training. And that was obviously after like 3 weeks of individual training, it was like a dream come true to actually be able to pass the ball and do things like that. So then we steadily went into being able to use the facility. So that meant like we could go into the locker room. The locker room was changed dramatically. Like we would all be spread out. And then we headed off to Orlando for the MLS's back tournament. And it was kind of this whole big thing where it was a lot of talk going on with obviously the team in the league and figuring out what we would do. It was a lot of confusion. But then, we kind of were able to go into that tournament and went there. And then as soon as we kind of got there, that was when things started to feel, I don't want to say normal, but like as if we were actually going to be competing and playing in something meaningful this year. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things that you were bringing up, the whole thing with Jack, and I remember Omar around that same time was able to have a conversation with Jack in regards to talking about his methodology and everything like that. And I was just absolutely astounded, I guess the word I would use is flabbergasted at how well he was able to utilize those rebounders to do this solo type of training. Because I know, Omar, you actually have a solo training program out there that people can purchase online, and how difficult it is to put a solo training program together and to be able to do that at the professional level for MLS goalkeepers. I don't know about you, Omar. I was just very astounded with what Jack was able to do.
Yeah, and I think we even, we discussed with a lot of coaches, Mike, even on the podcast or even like IG lives that I did with coaches, everyone had to get creative. Whatever pieces of equipment you can use and whatever ways you can try to replicate the game for the goalkeepers. And I think a lot of goalkeeper coaches push their boundaries in terms of creativity And I think a lot of those drills are still still able to be translated to a group session or a one-on-one session, which has been great.
Yeah. Bobby, did you get to take one of those huge rebounders home with you? Was that part of the training program? It's like, yeah, take one of these rebounders home with you so you can use it in your apartment.
No, unfortunately I did not. I was just bothering neighbors. I'd smash the ball off the wall and stuff, but no, we kept those in the facility.
Well, let's kind of dive into this topic. By the way, guys, if you guys were wondering why Saskia is not here with us on this lovely Thursday, congratulations to Saskia and everybody at Angel City FC. They have a press conference today. They just announced that they will be playing at Bank to California Stadium for their home games starting in 2022. Omar, I don't know about you, but I think this is a tremendous, not just for Angel City FC, but for the NWSL as well, to be playing in such a high level facility.
Was this a surprise though? I feel like that was like the most obvious choice. Like I feel like they were trying to make an announcement. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be at LAFC Stadium because no one's going to drive to Carson anymore, except for me. I'll continue to drive to Carson because that's my team and I'll never lose it. I actually know I had a conversation with somebody recently who was a Galaxy fan. He was on the Galaxy Academy with me back in the day. I played at Stanford. I won't say his name, but he said, "Yeah, I think I'm an LAFC fan now." I was like, "What is this, man? Like, what? I mean, if I became a LAFC fan, my family would disown me, and it would just be a very, very tough conversation. So I just can't see how people are jumping off so easily to LAFC. It kind of bugs me. But I will be an Angel City fan from day one, and hopefully they are successful. And with somebody like Saskia at the helm, I'm sure they're going to be great.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, it's literally be the equivalent, Bobby, of somebody going through the FC Cincinnati Academy and then, becoming a huge Columbus Crew fan. It's like, what are you doing there? So let's just kind of get into today's topic right now, man, because the whole reason we want to have you on is because I thought it was really impressive, man. I mean, obviously, you came from I don't want to say humble beginnings, but kind of humble beginnings. You weren't the most, highly sought after, player, and you had to kind of go through the I don't want to say the dredges, but you had to kind of, go through the levels in order to kind of showcase yourself and put yourself in position. And, that opportunity obviously in Northern Ireland really opened a lot of doors for you. And then you came back here to MLS, and it was so funny because I had a conversation with you and I was like, look, man, I mean, I think it's just cool that you're going to be in that environment this year. Maybe you'll get some playing time, in a few years. And then next thing I know, like a couple weeks later, you're starting in a match against Columbus Crew, which is literally your guys' rival and one of the best teams in MLS. So that must have just been such an incredible experience to know that you were kind of getting that nod. And for maybe some of the parents out there that don't know what we mean by first start, what are we referring to?
I mean, so you're just referring to getting your first in the 11. All right. So in the professional environment, obviously, it's one thing to be on the bench, but then it's another thing to be playing and stuff. So obviously, you only get one first appearance, one first start, and so making that first appearance is a big deal. And it was obviously a super exciting thing for me. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy. It all worked out, especially against the Crew and everything. But your shot that you kind of felt in terms of that was as much with me as it was with you. It was kind of crazy how quickly it happened, but it was really fantastic.
It was really, really funny because like when I texted you, I'm like, I was texting with Omar earlier. I'm like, dude, Bobby played last night. And I reached out. I'm like, dude, congrats, man. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. And you're like, dude, nobody did. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah. I kept that pretty much to maybe like 5 or 6 people, just because, I mean, it's something we obviously can talk about more, but in terms of the pressures of the job, it's already a very high pressure job. So for me, and personally, this is just my opinion, that I want to just focus on doing my thing. I don't want to make it this big spectacle. I don't want to make it this big thing because that's just additional pressure I don't need, right? I mean, I'm going to go out there, do my job, and I'm going to do it as best I can. So that was kind of one of the reasons I kept it kind of low key. It was like, this is what I'm going to do. I don't need everybody else knowing that I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go do it.
I think that's a really good point that you just brought up right there. And I know, Omar, you get asked all the time on DM, hey, man, I'm getting my first college start this weekend, or I'm playing for my club for the first time, or my high school the first time, or whatever. What advice do you give, And I think Bobby just kind of stressed something right there, Omar, is that, like, if you treat it like anything different, you're not going to be prepared for the moment.
I want to try real quick, Mike, to put it into perspective for people. Not too long ago, probably like a week ago, I had this crazy, crazy dream, and it turned into a nightmare. But I was a goalkeeper coach for the LA Galaxy first team, and our starting goalkeeper gets injured or
no one
starts
should
making
ever
mistakes.
have to do that. No one should ever have to be LA.
And the coach turns around and looks at me. This isn't my dream, so mind you, I'm like, this is real to me. And maybe it's just like my idea of going pro one of these days, and it's still keeping in my head. But coach turns to me and says, "Omar, you're going in second half." I'm like, "Coach, I'm the goalkeeper coach." He's like, "I don't care. We'll sign you right now. We'll put Twitter. We'll update everything, and we'll make sure that you're on the roster." So I remember right when I did that, I was like, I'm so excited. So I texted all my group chats from college, my family, everybody, while I was still on the bench. The half is still going on, texting everybody. And then I go in the second half, and I had like 4 shockers. It's like one of those dreams where your body just stops moving, like paralysis. You just can't move, and the shots are just going right past you. Like you're looking at them, and you just can't move. And it was just so embarrassing. Not only did I get dropped before the second half ended, I got fired as the goalkeeper coach. They said I was too inept to coach the goalkeepers, basically based off our performance. So yes, Bobby, very good of you not to tell people, because as soon as you give more eyes on you, there's more pressure on you, and there's more expectations. And sometimes it's better to have less expectations and over delivering than have all these expectations that you put on yourself and then under deliver. But Mike, sorry, that little story took us off path here. But essentially, what I would tell young kids is just like, nothing really changes. And I think that was my issue growing up, is that, okay, a quote that I like is always stay ready so you never have to get ready. So mentally, it was always like, okay, well, I have a big game this weekend. My next few days of training and my eating habits have to be perfect. And then right when we won that game, or I had a good game, I take my foot off the gas. I give myself maybe Saturday night, Sunday morning, kind of eat whatever I want. And then Monday, I'm like, okay, we have a big game coming up. So I just wish that more kids understood that if you just had a good plan, diet, nutrition, sleeping habits, icing, ice baths, all that stuff every single day throughout a season, then you're never going to have to be like, okay, now I got to get myself psyched up for that moment in time where I have to perform. It's just going to be a gradual progression, but you have to really suffer the consequences of being disciplined at the early parts of the season, and then later on, you're going to reap the rewards of that.
I mean, I think you're bringing up a really good point in regards to just treating everything the same. Because it's funny, because Bobby, I put in here, how did your preparation change knowing you're getting the nod? And it's sounding like, from what Omar was saying and from what you're saying, basically, is that like, you trained every week like you were getting the nod during the weekend, so that there was no adjustment period. There was no mental adjustment period, because the way you were looking at it is like, I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm if I'm expected to go in, I'm going to go in, because you never know, there could be an injury. Who knows?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head, so I don't need to repeat what you said. But that's also a testament to Jack. Jack, it's an important thing for a goalkeeper coach to make sure that all the goalkeepers are match ready. You obviously go in with a starter, but you need to make sure that number 2 and 3 are ready to go in case that is an option that comes up. So Jack did a really fantastic job. I was also lucky in terms of the way that the season panned out. I had made a numerous amount of roster appearances as a number 2. And obviously, listen, I mean, it's math, right? You're closer to the starting job at number 2 than you are 3, which had, maybe a little bit of a test in terms of what I was learning and what I was expected to do. But yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. The reason, maybe a backup goalkeeper job is so kind of mentally tough is because you have to prepare as if you are a starter, but you don't get that reward of being a starter. If I was just a backup goalkeeper who was just having a good time, then the job wouldn't be that difficult, because, you're just there for a good time. But that's not how I'm doing it. I'm here to prepare myself like I'm playing every week, and then you don't play, which is frustrating, but then your opportunity will come. And so it's kind of just that long game to stay ready, wait for your opportunity, and then try to take it once it does come.
You brought up a really good point in regards to that, because like that, I think that's one of the biggest misnomers that a lot of, for lack of a better term, uneducated people out there have, is that like, oh, if you're a 2 or a 3, like come the weekend, you're partying, you're out hanging out, you're eating hot dogs at the game, like, like maybe, maybe you're going out right after the game, it's just like you get free season tickets basically, going on for that. Yeah. But it is so important that you mentioned the fact about moving up that pecking order to get to that number 1, because I think a lot of people don't understand that, Bobby. And Omar, I don't know if you want to add on to this, is that they think that like, because I'm the number 3, I'm never going to get to that number 1 spot. Like I'm, oh geez, how do I bypass this person? How do I bypass this person? And again, Omar, like you've told people over and over and over again, they have no control. That is not a controllable, as we had Craig McCreath on from Reading FC. And he said, It's like, just control the controllables, right?
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking up the word misnomer. You actually used that right. I never heard that before, so I wanted to make sure that that was an accurate word before we released the podcast. But yes, that was very, very true. I think a lot of discussions when it comes in the groups and all that stuff, even with Nathan Thacker, I spoke to him last week, and he was saying that sometimes we have younger goalkeepers that are in the position that they are in, second or third string. And he's like, sometimes I try to have them understand and reshape the perspective of where they are in the pecking order, not as to, okay, I'm a second goalkeeper. This is my role. This is what I have to do. It's more of like, look, if you can continue to push the starting goalkeeper and they're playing extremely well because you continuously put that pressure on yourself, that should be a major victory for you every single week. Oops. Sorry, someone just called me. And
Someone was
yeah,
very
so
excited that you knew what misnomer meant too.
No, but I think it's that, yeah, it's can we shape our perspective away from it being a negative thing as the number two things we can't control, but more so like, okay, if you need motivation, if you need an idea of how you can continue to push yourself, is that if the number one is playing very, very well day in and day out, or week in and week out in every performance, can you take some pride from that and say, you know what, they're playing extremely well because I'm continuously putting pressure on them. And if you go with that mentality, let's just say they get injured or they have a spell of bad games, 3-4 bad games, in your head, you're ready to go because you've been preparing yourself to play at that next level or be that starting goalkeeper. So as long as you have a steady mentality and your opinion about your positioning doesn't go into a defeated one, but more so the perspective of I can actually influence the results for our team by how I train, whether I'm in the game or I'm not in the game, that mentality I think could really serve you well if you do get the opportunity to be that starter at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could just add one little example here, just because I think this is a really great, point that we want to make. If you look at, there's been a lot of great goalkeepers in this league that have passed through, but one of them that stands out in my mind, maybe just because I grew up as, somebody that watched and supported the Red Bulls, was Luis Robles, and he's still obviously a very good goalkeeper. But Luis, when he first made his start, he wasn't the first choice at Red Bull. I believe it was Ryan, and Ryan was the one that was starting, and it wasn't until he got his opportunity, Luis, through I think an injury, where he went in and played, and then it was from that point that he never let go of that spot. And that's obviously one of the things that happens with our position is, it's one person's, unfortunate is somebody else's success, which is difficult, but that's the reality of the position. It's not necessarily a solid 1, 2, or 3, and that's how it stays. It's just somebody that gets their opportunity and takes it. And you look at that's the most extreme example is Luis takes his opportunity and then sets the league record for most continuous starts. So has one of the most decorated careers. So, it's obviously, your point exactly there, Omar.
Yeah, Mike.
Go ahead, Omar.
No, I just want to add one more thing too. I think, for a story from me at least, my freshman year of college, I came in. We're doing captain's practices, and within the first week, there was like a through ball 1v1. They squirted across. I came over. The guy blasted it, broke my wrist. So right away, I was kind of like, okay, I'm probably not going to be in contention to be a starter. The goalkeeper coach and the head coach sat me down and said, look, we've seen you in the first week. It's not looking great. Your wrist is broken. Just keep working hard, just in case anything happens. We're probably going to redshirt you. So I was just like, okay, I'm not going to go party, but I'm also going to be like very like, okay, relax, take the stress off myself, but I'm going to continue to push. And every single training, I just wanted to get better and learn from the older guys. And then, 1 week, the starting goalkeeper gets a concussion. Okay, the next week, the backup goalkeeper plays 2 or 3 games, and then he comes down with a shoulder injury. So then I was, okay, shoot, I went from being a red shirt to having with a broken wrist, still broken wrist, but being a red shirt. And then now I'm in contention, and now I'm playing in my games. And then after that, it was just like the mentality that I was able to keep from, okay, I know I'm not going to be the starter. I'm probably going to redshirt, but just understand that I just need to continuously learn. So when I do get my opportunity next year, I'll be ready to go. And luckily, I had the right pieces and the right coaches around me who were feeding me good information. So I think us younger coaches or even goalkeeper coaches who have young goalkeepers who are promising, give them that information of like, look, you might not be the starter, but let's shape your perspective around not just being the number 2 or 3 and go party and take your foot off the gas. But really, can you continuously push? And then once your opportunity does come, there's going to be no adjustment period. You're going to be ready to go.
Yeah. So I want to get into this right now. So I'm going to share the screen right now here because, Bobby, I really want to talk about how important it is once you kind of get into that match to kind of get into the rhythm of the game. Now, you had a few distributions before this, but this was kind of like the first major touch that you had in the game. And when you got Yassi Zardes coming at you, dude, I don't know how you kept your cool. I would have been freaking out, but that's me. That's me right here. So why don't you walk us kind of through this play right here, And it's a very simple play, but it's just that confidence of just like, okay, well, I'm getting the ball. The player's coming at me. You're not focused on Yassi at all whatsoever. You're focused immediately just on this bouncing ball, which, by the way, for a lot of people who think that's a simple play right there, that's a difficult play because the bounce that ball took right there. It could have gone badly.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that's one of the things. I have a love and hate relationship with Nippert Stadium. This season it's been mostly hate, because the one thing that makes Nippert amazing is our fan base. But as you can see in the clips there's nobody there. The surface itself is not amazing. It's kind of tough turf, and it doesn't bounce true all the time. And it's kind of sporadic the way it bounces. So I remember that play exactly, because I remember it being a ball that I knew was going to bounce, and then I was going to have to time and be like, all right, it could be a weird one. So my most important thing I remember was just like, get yourself behind the ball, because you can kind of see it almost does bobble a little bit, but it was there where I was comfortable enough to kind of put it down, pick it back up. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just watching that ball, that was the only thing that it goes through your mind in that moment. You need to make sure that like you're not worried about anything other than keeping your concentration on the ball. I mean, that's another thing too, and not to go off on a tangent here, but when we work on crosses or distribution in terms of a game, it's different in training when you're just knowing where everybody is, but that's not how it's going to work. So you need to kind of take that same mindset of following the ball in and not worrying about the outside factors, and just kind of worry about that one little thing.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love the fact that you just said that. By the way, I love the fact that you also brought up the field conditions right there too, because if there's one thing I've noticed about that stadium is that people are slipping and sliding everywhere, dude.
Oh yes, they are. Let me tell you, yes, they are.
And Omar, I think this is a really good example right now there of if you're preparing like a starter over and over again, then you're familiar with that field. And when you go out there on that field, you're going to be like, okay, I know what's happening right now. By the way, I also think, Omar, I don't know about you and Bobby, I don't know how you feel about this, is that I think it's easier to get your first start for a new club at your home field than it is away.
I mean, yeah, I would agree with you 100% on that one. I mean, it's just a matter of being more comfortable in your environment. This is your place. Obviously, I think that it maybe is a little bit different in terms of COVID nowadays. I don't think that's necessarily as a factor. I mean, if you're going to an away stadium, getting your first start with, the entire crowd is sold out and it's all away fans, it's a much different story. But still, even now, it's definitely that same familiarity.
Yeah, like Omar, I was going to ask you right here. You were talking so much about that mental preparation of having that coaching staff behind you who was encouraging you and they were giving it. How important is it, and what type of words, as you as a goalkeeper coach right now, obviously coaches in the collegiate level, when a goalkeeper is getting their first kind of nod in a match, that you kind of want to give them buzzwords, or specific points of view?
So I think, can you guys hear me? I think I lost you guys for a second.
Can you hear us now?
You're saying, yeah, I can hear you. That's all right. I think my
I was just basically saying, as like a goalkeeper coach right now, obviously coaching at the collegiate level, that if you've got somebody getting the nod for the first time, how important is it the language that you use throughout the week to prepare that goalkeeper to get into the game?
No, definitely. I think for me, the biggest thing is the macro. I think as coaches, we're in the the weekly discussions with the coaching staff, so we have an idea of what the head coach is looking for from this goalkeeper, right? It's just kind of like, we want them to make sure that they're steady. We're playing against a team that may not have many chances, so let's get a goalkeeper who's sound, not making any rash decisions, not trying to spur counterattacks and causing us to create turnovers or have issues where we're giving up fouls in certain areas that we don't want to give up. So the way I would discuss with my goalkeepers, the way I did, was just letting them know that, look, I'm looking at the macro. I want you to just make sure you get comfortable. Like Bobby just said right there, that ball that came in early in the game, it's important to really see the ball all the way through. Again, it comes back to the training habits. What we're training in sessions is getting those shots and really, really following through with your eyes, just so that in those first few moments that you're getting an opportunity to play, just making sure you're focusing on the fine details and really letting yourself settle in. And then once you're settled in, I think a lot of goalkeepers, even with a first date, for example, or anything, once you're settled in and everything's calm, you're going to be more about yourself. So understanding that I tell them, there's going to be moments where there's uncertainty. There's going to be moments when there's nerves. There's going to be moments where you might not know what to do, but just making sure that you don't go out of your boundaries, out of who you are. Understand that just keeping it simple is very, very important. And then again, I tell them, look, this is the opportunity to build your trust with your teammates and your coaching staff. So take everything slow, don't rush it. And then little by little, then you start uncovering and unfolding different parts of your game. For the first few minutes of the game, just settle in, simple passes. Don't be trying to do too much. We don't need anything extra from you. Simple, composed, and then from there we build. And that's what I tell them too, is just, if the coaching staff tells me, hey, this is going to be our guy for the next few weeks, or this is going to be the next our guy for the whole season, I need you to understand, Omar, we need to get their confidence ready to go. So don't be telling them they have to have a big game or like that. So it's from the head coach to you, and then how you can kind of take those words and those buzzwords and really feed it to the goalkeeper without putting too much pressure on them.
I want to show this right now, Bobby, because, Omar, you were just bringing up simple. And here's an example right now. Whoops, what just happened here?
You're going to drop something?
Okay, hold on. Let me try that again here. All right. Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You were talking about simple, right? And so here, sorry, I'm just totally thinking about that drawing thing right there. I am not a good artist, so that would have been a terrible idea. Here's a play right now that's just very simple in regards to how you handled it, Bobby. Here's the cut. The shot comes inside. And a lot of goalkeepers in the situation would be trying to do too much, making a meal out of this play, as they say so and so. But no, I'll hold on to that ball and keep it clean right there whatsoever. As opposed to, well, that ball's driving, that ball's rising. I got to tip that ball over. I can't take any chances of dropping that ball. But look at the confidence that you had as that shot comes in. Boom. As you see the rise, and you see it's still rising, and you go, but you know what? I'm under the crossbar. I can get that ball, and I'm going to hold it. Boom.
Yeah, I mean,
look at that composure. Look at that.
Look at that hairdo too, man. Talk about something. Wow. I think this is the part where I shamelessly plug AB1 GK, obviously, because amazing gloves. But no, I mean it's just one of those things that look, it's tough to really say because we can always talk about it, but when it comes to the game, I understand sometimes it's different. But like if this was a training match, right, and that exact shot were to come in, that's how I would act. You know what I mean? And like that's kind of the thing that I like to try to train in the way that I would act in the match, and that's the most important thing. So Jack makes a really good point about that in training in terms of sometimes I was trying to do too much, and the opposite of this, like I was trying to catch things that I shouldn't have been trying to catch because I should have just been pushing them. And then you get in those habits of being like, oh no, this is something that I should push, but this right here is something that I felt comfortable catching, and it was a good opportunity to show that like this is what I can do, and it's just simple but focus on it, and we're fine.
I think look at the eyes right there. Look at the shape of your body right there, because that's how you can catch the ball. Because based on if you've been slightly off, maybe an inch or two the other direction, that is a pushover, because you can't get that clean movement into the ball right there. So that's a testament to you and your starting position as well too, and how you track that ball. Yeah.
Like one thing I want to highlight that Bobby just said there. It's kind of like take the opportunities when they come to you. Don't go out and seek opportunities to prove to people that you're good or you're worthy of being the starter. And I think that is another piece of advice that I got from my coaching staff at Davis. I remember I made a mistake. We were playing against UC Irvine. They were really, really highly ranked. My first start of the year, and we lost 3-0. And on the third goal, they crossed the ball in. I came out for a long throw, and I came out. I dropped it on someone's head, and they passed it. And if you guys watched Portugal play against, I think it was Croatia, a Croatian goalkeeper did that in the last minute of the game. And I remember I was, I came from this LA Galaxy Academy where my goalkeeper coach used to always make us feel, just nervous about even confronting him about discussions about the position or about mistakes. And my assistant coach calls me and he said, look, Omar, yes, we're upset that you made that mistake. But again, it didn't cost us the game. So understand that you played extremely well throughout the game when it was 2-0. And that third goal, it's a wash. Don't even worry about it. Let it be. You played great, everything else. Just let it be. And then focus on the things you did well. So I think it was for me that reassurance that, I have that reassurance from my coaching staff that no matter the decisions I made, good and bad, they have the trust from me because I wasn't trying to seek anything or I wasn't trying to force anything, but I played calm and composed. So I think that's what Bobby kind of alluded to there is making sure that when opportunities come to you, you take them, but don't go out trying to prove to anybody or trying to make decisions that aren't there.
Bobby, do you think that's one of the biggest mistakes that young goalkeepers make when they get their first start is that they start trying to play not like themselves? They start trying to play like the starter, quote unquote.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like, this is obviously maybe a little bit early to segue to this, but obviously as amazing as my start was, the next game I had an error. And that error was a direct stem from that thing right there where I was trying to do a little bit too much and I was trying to do things that I didn't need to do. And it was from that same idea that, you're trying to prove something, you're going for this, cross or whatever it is. And that's a very common thing that happens. You see that in a lot of young goalkeepers, the people that haven't had the experience yet. But it's something that really all that can be cured from that is, the only way to cure that is getting that experience, to see minutes, to see repetition, and to see all these things happen. That is the best way to learn. So, understanding that like it is okay. And that's a personal philosophy of mine, is I like to tend to be a little bit more conservative in terms of my decision making than to try to push it, because it's always a bit safer. You know what I mean? So that's 100%. I agree with you there.
I think you brought up a really good point, because, that is a controllable that you have. Uncontrollable is Nippert Stadium. I'll be honest with you, and like, if we look at we look at that game and we see the DC United game, there were certain balls that like they might, manager might have wanted you to play, short, and you're like, dude, look at this bounce. There's no way. I need to be smart about this, because again, you only get one chance to make a first impression type of thing, and if you start trying to play tiki taka, it's not there. Yeah, go more.
I think a lot of it is luck too, and I think a lot of us goalkeepers who played for long enough now, and Mike, I'm sure when you played as well too, it's just like there have been situations for me at least where I've made a mistake, and early on in a few starts of my games, I've made a mistake, and then we ended up winning. We ended up winning 2-1. And that, the mistake led to a goal. We ended up winning 2-1. So it's like, it was a learning lesson, but my team didn't suffer. But then when I was with the Galaxy, there was a period where I was doing extremely well. And then all of a sudden I made 2 errors back to back. This was before the playoff situation, Mike. Before that, I made 2 errors back to back, and they led directly to our loss. And the goalkeeping is, if you probably look back at every professional goalkeeper's career, Schmeichel, Oliver Kahn, Van der Sar, any of those guys, they've probably made those mistakes and have either gotten away with it, or their team ended up winning their team ended up winning even with that mistake. So it's just those fine margins, but you need those coaches who understand. That's why goalkeeper coaches need to influence the front office, I feel, a little bit more, is to understand that, look, this goalkeeper is promising. They just had the error. It led to a goal. But from the reps we've been seeing and throughout the rest of the game, let's not highlight that mistake. But let's understand that they had a great game regardless of that, and that they have promise for the future. So it's just a matter of inches and a matter of luck for some goalkeepers. And I think that's the important takeaway.
And I think, Bobby, you said something really great about in regards to after that DC game, is that Jack had your back. Jack had your back after that.
100%. And it was, obviously maybe I am a glass half full type of guy, but it was incredible to kind of see like both sides of the coin in terms of the highs and the lows that can change like that. That's the life of a goalkeeper, So it's one of those things that you grow from, and 100%. But for me, I've almost kind of always been a little bit of a nervy keeper. I've always kind of been nervous before matches. It's just how I am. But then once you get into it, you play. But it's interesting because you look it in the face that's what you're afraid of. You're afraid of making a mistake or experiencing failure. But then to go through it and then experience it and be like, look, I'm still here. This is still very much my career. I'm able to do this. It makes it a little bit better moving forward. You know what I mean? To have gone through that, to not be worried about that. And push on. And then, as a little side thing that I think is a good opportunity to talk about, this apparently is like something that Steve Clark said, but I've gotten it through my buddy Eric Konofsky, who played with Steve at DC way back in the day. He said that moments like this in a game, like where you make a mistake, the closest thing you can kind of replicate that is in training. When you make a mistake like that, consciously be aware that you've made that a mistake, and then work on it then. Because that's a big thing. I feel that it's tough, because when you make a mistake in the game, how can you replicate that? Because it's unlike anything else. But when you're training, especially in team environments, and maybe you're playing a short-sided game, you make a bad mistake, focus in that moment and be like, okay, I've made a mistake. What do I do now? And work on consciously trying to get yourself out of it, get yourself into a new rhythm, and forget about it. Because it's so hard to just try to do it in a game for the first time ever. You need to kind of work on it beforehand. If that makes sense.
Dude, that is
a great
awesome
point. Yeah.
Such a good point, because like, I'm thinking back now to my career right now. And I think that was one of my biggest issues, is that here was the thing for me. The more shots I had, I was a better goalkeeper, the more action I got in a game. The less action I got in a game, the worse goalkeeper I was. And I think it's just how I'm wired. I think it just kept me connected with the game. I think I'm kind of neurotic, and I'm kind of, spazzy and stuff like that. So I like being excited. And, maybe it was that time in Venezuela where it was like shot. You know how that is, Omar.
I do.
But in training, I would wave off every mistake and move on to the next thing. And I think a lot of that is in part to also the lack of the understanding by the coaching department as well too. Because if they go next play, and it doesn't give you that time to sink in and reflect on that mistake and treat it like you would in an actual game, well, then you're not going to be able to do that, like you're saying, Bobby, in the actual match. That's so it's so incredible, dude. So
Yeah,
awesome.
I gotta get. Apparently, that's what Steve Clark has told Eric, and Eric passed it on to me. So credit to Steve Clark.
Oh,
I believe that's his idea.
Well, Steve Clark is next level, so I got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Bobby, but for you, do you feel like there's ever been a moment in time where like you've used that, where you've kind of made a mistake and you lived in it and you said, look, like instead of running away from it, I'm aware of it. Let's just try and figure out what it is now. So if it does come up again, I know exactly what to do.
I mean, 100%. I mean, I used it in that DC United game. It was funny because it was one of those things where I felt way more confident in that game, and I actually felt like I was on top of it. I had a great warm up, everything was good. And even after that mistake, I didn't feel rattled. I'd obviously been aware, okay, I made a mistake, but I was almost like I still feel comfortable in this environment. I wasn't kind of shaken. It was funny too because it's just like you said, a little bit of luck later. I remember we had tied it up 1-1, and then they had gotten their opportunity for the second goal, which was the shot from the top of the box. And I almost remember a little bit of excitement before the shot came because I'm going to save this. Like, this is an opportunity. I'm going to make a good play here, blah, blah, blah. And I made the save, and it was unfortunately just, the rebound was able for their one runner out wide right in that spot, which is disappointing. But it was the same idea that, okay, I've made this mistake. I can't go back and change it. And it does suck 100%. But, like, let's push on. Like, let's make sure we're back on to the next one because it sounds cliche, but, like, that's just the reality of it. You need to be able to kind of continue on.
Totally.
And I want to bring up this right now. Let's see if I can share this right now without showing a drawing whiteboard again. Everyone can see this right now. Okay, so now we're near the end of this match right here. So I mean, my gosh, man, talk about the pressure right here. Now this is when the mind games start happening, at least for me, Bobby. I don't know about you, but this is when the mind games. I'm like, we're playing our huge rival right now. Okay, we're up by 1 goal. Okay, we're in extra time right now, and they have a service into the box. Okay, that's when my mind starts panicking. And I love what you did right here, which is first off, you're so focused, you're so wired right there. That ball comes in swinger. You come right out at it and confidently box that out of the box and immediately getting back in retreat position. You didn't take any chances right there of saying like, oh, I need to play this to the right player or whatever. You're just like, I'm getting this out, making sure it clears the 18, and that's all I care about.
Yeah, and poor Saad there, my teammate that I kind of just took out in the process. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that, look, if you're 6'6", you better be good at crosses. I mean, you're given a lot of height, so it's one of those things that I've usually played that to my strength of coming for crosses in traffic. It's one of my stronger suits. In that moment, I mean, that's just one of the things. Look, I need to make sure that I meet that with power and go for it and make sure just get the contact on it and get us out and clear. And that's one of the things that have kind of propelled me along my career. I've been very solid in crosses in traffic.
I think one thing that a lot of people don't recognize right here, and Omar, I don't know if you want to break this down as well too, is a lot of people say, oh, why didn't you try to catch that ball? They don't recognize that based on the traffic that's on you right there, you can't get a clean hold on that ball. And second of all, you can't get enough underneath that ball to really loop that ball. You have to kind of more just get what you can and box it as much as you can, even if it's driven.
Yeah. One thing I'd also add is I've learned from experience that goalkeepers won't always get the love from the referees and the benefit of the doubt. So if you're going up to try to hold something and you get, maybe somebody tugs your arm or does this or that or one thing and the ball pops out and goes in, the referee probably won't show you any love. So for my personal sake, I like to just usually play it safe when we're in tough situations like that, 2 strong fists on it and get it kind of cleared.
Yeah. Omar, I want to bring you up, because would you say the whole risk of reward thing, Omar, here, which is, again, like you were talking about, obviously, when you were at LA Galaxy Academy, catch everything, which you obviously have clarified since then in regards to what he meant by then. But the risk of bobbling this ball as your first start in MLS against your rival in extra time to potentially lose those 3 points is not worth it. It's not worth it, right, Omar?
No, but I think also too, I think we've played the game long enough, and I think we've probably watched as fans, we've watched professional goalkeepers, a World Cup final or could be a cup final, whatever it is, and you're like, okay, Buffon is having 5-6 guys on top of him. okay, look at the context of it. Okay, there's a big crowd traffic, plus you have the time, which is like the last few minutes that you're protecting the lead. So most likely Buffon's probably going to try and punch this out. So again, risk versus reward. So again, you're getting a lot of those mental notes as a fan, so that when you step into a game, I'm sure Bobby can attest to this, and we've all been through before, is that, okay, 90th minute, we're up 1-0. Okay, everyone's on top of me. Most likely before the ball struck, you're thinking, if I do come for this, I just got to make sure I really put it far away if I do punch it. Maybe, like Bobby said, even if it's, on top of me and I could probably catch it, I'd rather just try and get it out of the area because there's too many bodies there if I try to come down with it. So again, I think as goalkeepers, we're assessing the situation way, way, way before the ball's actually struck. So we have a preconceived idea, not preconceived, but we have a idea of what we're going to do prior, but we have somewhat of a data point of like, okay, this is probably one of those balls that I try and punch out. So the risk versus reward, I think, is handled prior to the ball being served, and then now you're just acting on those thoughts as the ball's being served in.
Bobby, I want to say this right now because one of the things, Omar, that you said in regards to affecting the ball a few podcasts back, which was that from Bournemouth? Was that?
No, I mean, I think we've all had that with our goalkeeper coaches of like just help it, guide it on, influence it a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that's the number one thing, in my opinion, right there in that situation. If I was there right there, all I would think of is like, if it's an in-swinger, I'm going to affect the ball. I'm going to make some sort of quality play on the ball that affects the movement of the ball so that its path is redirected. And that's really all you got to do, right? Go.
And like, one more thing, I think, again, we talk about it all the time, like, trying to put and instill as much pressure as you can in training sessions. So the goalkeeper has been through that. And I think that has been a discussion that, a lot of goalkeeper coaches have had, especially during the quarantine, is how can we have realistic pressure and realistic stress put into sessions? And a lot of goalkeepers know the technique, and a lot of goalkeeper coaches know how to teach the technique, but it's how can you apply that technique with context of the time of the game, the pressure on you, your first start, for example, 90th minute, is there traffic? Is there no traffic? Is it an in-swinger? Is it an outswinger? So again, it's a good question, I'm sure, for Bobby too, and I'm sure Jack has probably done this with you guys, but how can we create that authentic stress so that technique isn't just technique, but it's actually refined technique, and it's known how to be deployed in the right circumstances in the right way. So there's nothing, fogging your decision making. There's nothing blocking that ability for you to go, okay, I know the technique, and now I got to apply it to the context.
I would say, well, it's one thing too. I mean, Jack obviously does a good job in terms of keeping it. Everything when we train, one of the things we always say is that every rep is game realistic, right? So we're treating everyone like it's a game thing, and this might sound a little bit silly, but like things that I would always do in terms of when we do reps and drills is that I would try to visualize myself in a high pressure situation like that one. It's like that one you just saw in the clip. Like, see a crowd in my head, right? We're in whatever, the 90th minute, make up something. It doesn't really matter. Just put yourself in some sort of high pressure situation that you can make up whatever you want. But then try to visualize that and say, okay, this cross is about to come in. I have to treat this as if it's a game, right? So whatever it is, it needs to be the right decision. And that's good for two reasons. Like, one, because maybe you come and, make a play on the cross or whatever it is. Or two, you're going to not come and right. That was the other thing too, is making the decision that's correct. So if the cross isn't one that you would come for in a game, to drop back, treat it as if it's a game realistic thing. Don't just say, oh, the ball is bad, that's fine, whatever. Make sure you get back to your line and treat it realistically, because it's just those little things. It's almost like when you're a little kid and you're shooting hoops in your backyard and you think it's the NBA Finals, right? Like, do that same trick. It sounds silly, but like, honestly, that trick is good used for becoming in that high pressure situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I used to do that to myself too. I'd say, look, 3, 2, 1. If you miss this, you got to do some sprints. And I kept missing shots after a while, so I had to change the punishment from sprints to push-ups. Do something stationary because my cardio wasn't good enough to keep on missing those shots. So I know what you're talking about.
This was the Omar with the non-quick first step back in the day.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly.
So let's talk about this now, Bobby. Obviously, we're in the off season now. Obviously, some changes are happening at FC Cincinnati, and they made the decision to not just you, but the majority of the club seems to be moving in a different direction to different places. And I think one thing that's really needs to be stressed about this for a lot of the young goalkeepers out there who are pursuing a professional career is that is the professional career. So get used to it. You could be starting and no fault of your own, the club has decided to make a business decision. And because of that, you're off looking for a different thing. I think one of the fantastic things that we talked about even before the season started, Bobby, is that how this year was going to allow you to put yourself in the shop window to continue your professional career at whatever junctures that's going to be. So how important is it to get some reps during the season to put yourself in that shop window?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously important. It's one of those things that you want to show what you're able to do in terms of who you are as a goalkeeper, right? It's tough to really get your name out when you're just sitting on the sideline, right? It's one of those things. So it's definitely important. But the other thing too is that I've been a big believer in you can't force whatever is going to happen. And I've learned that the hard way. When I was younger in college, I'd always try to map out exactly what's going to happen. This is my plan, my 2-year, 3-year plan. And that's great. And you can try that if you want. But for me, that's never how it's worked, right? Every plan that I've ever had, it's gone sideways for one reason or another. And so at a certain point, I hit the age where I was like, all right, let's just, work on what I can do now, control what I can control, do the best I can do in this moment, and then the rest will work itself out. Obviously, you're putting yourself in good situations, but you're not concerned about like the future. And that's not to say you're not thinking about it. Obviously, right now, I'm, thinking about what I'm going to do next, but I'm only worried about trying to control the controllable. So we stress that a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's been a crazy journey up until this point, and we're going to just continue with this crazy journey, and hopefully it leads us somewhere exciting.
Yeah. Sorry if I got distracted for a second, guys. Right there, I just found out that 2 of my players on fantasy are listed as questionable for this weekend.
Oh, wow.
DeAndre Swift, who are you talking about?
So T. Higgins and Duke Johnson. So,
yeah. No, but I think to Bobby's point there, I think that's a really good way of kind of diagramming that for younger kids, their goalkeepers or field players, is that there are certain things that you can control, your diet, nutrition, a lot of things that are going to affect you, but there are a lot of things that are out of your control, whether it's the starter, you're the backup, you're going to make a team, you're not going to make a team, all that stuff. So yeah, like you said, Bobby, it's important to have the plans, but more so the plans that you can influence yourself on a daily basis, mainly decisions for yourself. And there's going to be also other things that if you do position yourself, or if you do extremely well in the things that you can control, you're going to position yourself in a good position where there are things that are out of your control, but you're going to put yourself ahead of other people who aren't necessarily prioritizing the right things, and put yourself in a good position to have those hopefully decisions go your way.
I mean, look, I learned years back. I remember I was devastated. I actually was devastated because I'd trained so hard with this team and I'd done the best I thought, and I thought I was of the level that I could at least sit on a bench and cheer people on, like, maybe shake some maracas or something like that. And then I found out long after, talking to some people, they said, I had nothing to do with your playing at all whatsoever. It was completely based on the budget of the club and where they had to put their resources. And they didn't have the money to keep you there as a non-domestic player, which was obviously and if anybody out there's been trying to, and Bobby, I know you did this because you went overseas and you were a non-domestic player, and those are things that are out of your control, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%. It's one of those things that you are whoever you are, wherever you are, and that's just all you can do, right? So if there's things that happen to you, you can't react and take it personally, because that's just a part of the job, right? So for me, I'm grateful. I mean, this past year has been amazing for me. It's been beyond my wildest dreams, the amount of development, my exposure in terms of, getting to work with amazing guys that have become like family to me. Jack, Spencer, TT, Ben, Beckham, all these guys, we're a goalkeeper union. So all I have is gratitude for this past year to Cincinnati, and I'm excited to see their future. They're going to be fantastic in the future, I know, but it's just part of the job. So, it's nothing personal at all.
Omar, what do you tell to young goalkeepers right now who, let's say, because there's a lot of goalkeepers who are after the USL season's over right now. I know you talk to a lot of USL goalkeepers in the off season and everything like that, and those contracts are a little bit different than MLS. I mean, those can go year to year sometimes. So what do you tell them in regards to what to do now as they're either looking for a new club or trying to see if they want to try to move up to a different league or whatever?
I mean, for the most part, I'm sure Bobby can attest to this. I think the first year or so, when you do get a contract, you're just happy to be there. You're very happy to get a contract. You'll play for whatever money, And I think after a while, you start, getting skin in the game, and you start getting a little bit of an understanding of how the business works, and of, okay, I'm not just happy to be here anymore. Like, I want my spot and I want an opportunity. So I don't care if I have to go, like my friend went to Tulsa, for example. Like, they weren't that great last year, but this year they brought a whole new environment, a whole new team in, and they made the playoffs for the first time in I don't know how many years for the USL. So, wherever you can get your opportunity. So that's what I tell them. I said, look, yes, you're probably happy that you were on a roster. Yes, now you understand what's the expected of you. But now, can you just decompress for a second, and then now go out to different teams and shop yourself around and go to the place where you're actually going to get the best chance to play? And I think that's what I usually tell them is enough of just being happy where you are. Let's have an understanding of where you're going to have the best chance to play. And once you have that, then go full speed ahead. And then again, it's always nice to know that wherever you're going, your talent and who you are is going to be respected. And I think, again, when you're stepping into a professional environment the first few years, or maybe the first year or two, your contract, you're just happy that you have a contract. You could say you're playing pro. Some players, I know other players are different, but then now your expectations of yourself and expectations of your career are a lot higher. And I think that's what I would tell them.
Yeah. So, like, moving, obviously, so would you agree, Bobby, kind of with like what Omar was saying in regards to, like, so obviously, you're not a first year pro, but you're first year MLS pro. Does your perspective, your point of view coming into this offseason very different than it was last year?
Yeah, 100%. I just want to say, I mean, Omar just kind of hit the nail on the head there, because coming into the season, I was obviously very nervous in every new environment, going to MLS, all these things, the expectations. But kind of ending now, looking back, it's crazy. I thought I was, the best I'd ever been coming into the season. And now I just feel like a completely different goalkeeper. And that's what a year, your first year does. You adapt quickly, but it also is part of, who you are. So when I showed up in preseason, there was a gap between Spencer, TT, and I. I realized that. I said, okay, they've been here for a while. They're experienced pros, and I'm this rookie, and you can see it, and it shows. And it bugged me, and I didn't like that. So, what I did from there on out was I was always the first one in every morning, and I would always be one of the last to leave every day. And I'd stay in the gym extra and put in this extra work, because I realized that I had more ground to make up than everyone else did, right? So slowly and surely I would chip away. And then by the time that, when I started to play rolled around, I was a completely different goalkeeper. Looking back and watching like 5 sessions from when I first got here, it's like bizarre to me to watch this goalkeeper and be like, oh my God, what were you doing? So yeah, that development, the experience, I'm walking away from my first season, coming into the season, not knowing if I was an MLS goalkeeper, versus now I'm feeling like I'm more than, capable of being in this league and being at the caliber. So that's kind of what, your first year will do to you. You become a product of your environment.
I think you just brought up a really good point right there. Go ahead, Omar.
No, I think maybe we're probably going to be on the same wavelength here, Mike. But to Bobby, I'm going to ask you a question first. I think for me, I use myself a lot, and why I coach a certain way is because I knew there was a lot of, not demons, but like certain things that I didn't do as a young goalkeeper that caught up to me. Again, nutrition was big for me. Not being in the gym enough to strengthen my body and give myself durability and longevity throughout a season. So that all caught up to me. And now as a coach, I really push that on the kids, because I know that I won't say it was my downfall, but it caught up to me. My body was broken down by 22. So for you, do you feel like you just said, kind of taking a step back and realizing that TT, and obviously Titon is with his name, but I guess you call him TT, and then you have Spencer Ritchie, who were, yes, a little bit more experienced, but you having that awareness to take a step back and go, I'm man enough to tell myself that I'm not as good as these guys. I don't have the proper habits like they do. So now I'm not going to prove it to them. I'm proving things to people can only get you to a certain point. You take your foot off the gas after that. But prove to myself that I deserve to be here. So let me go back to the drawing board and see what are certain characteristics of these successful people or these successful goalkeepers. What is it about them that they're being that they've really fine-tuned over the years? Is that a process you went through, or did you just kind of wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm going to show up whenever, or I need to show up early and leave last? Because I mean, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant type stuff. Or did you actually take a step back and say, look, these are the habits that I currently have. It's not getting me where I want to be. These are the habits that these guys have, and I really need to improve on.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's 100% that, observing and seeing and then trying to replicate it, right? So for me, like, I'll give one example here. Spencer, before I showed up to Cincinnati, the spread shape in terms of, almost into the full split was something so foreign to me. I was usually just somebody that threw down the knee into a block shape and tried to go that way. And then I showed up and I would just watch Spencer. And Spencer, for me, the best goalkeeper I've ever worked with in terms of the spread shape. It was amazing to me. He was just throwing it and saving shots that I didn't know I was saving. And I would watch that. And I'd be like, how do you do that? So it's funny. I mean, if you talk to him, he'll probably tell you this story. When we were in preseason down in Florida, we stayed after one session with him and Jack. And I was just like, can you just show me like how you're doing that? Because I feel like I would rip my groin if I ever tried to do that. So he's doing it, and then like I would try to do it, and they were just like laughing at me because it was so like it was so foreign to me, and I was like, I need to figure out how to do this. So then like slowly but surely, especially we got home and went into lockdown, I would work on my stretching routine every day for like 25 minutes, just working on my flexibility in terms of my lower body, so that I eventually just got into the full spread shape. And now all of a sudden this has become like a tool in my arsenal. So now I'm this 6'6" dude who's able to whip out like a full spread into a split, because you're picking up these habits, because you're seeing in areas you lack, and then you're working on them to make sure that you aren't lacking anymore. So yeah, you pretty much watch them and then try to implement it to your own game.
Yeah, dude, I go ahead, Omar.
Shit, sorry, Mike. No, it's on you. I think I've cut off enough.
No. I was just gonna say, one of the really cool things that you said there, right there, Bobby, that I really like earlier was about the, being in the environment. Like, you don't know until you get into the environment, whether, like, now you said you're like, I feel I am an MLS goalkeeper. I want a lot of young coaches out there, and I want a lot of young goalkeepers to hear that, because that translates to every level of the game. Number one, if you're a goalkeeper and you move to a different level, whether you move from high school to college, club to high school, college to pro, or whatever, or your lower division to higher division in pro, every level is going to be an adjustment period, because you've never been in that environment before. Every league plays differently. Every environment is different in regards to how they train and everything like that. And if you don't give yourself that leeway to understand that it's going to take some time for you to feel comfortable, like you said, like with learning the spread save, that's just one example of getting comfortable with something, then you're going to freak yourself out, and you're probably not going to play up to your potential. Same thing for young coaches out there. If you take a player and you put them up in a level, let's say you move a kid up an age group, right? And then they start struggling, and you go, oh, they can't play at the level. You need to give them time to acclimate to the environment before you actually make a decision on whether and assess whether they can play at that level. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that is without a doubt, every single step that I've ever made, it's always been this adjustment period where I freak myself out. I'm like, well, do I belong here? Is this somewhere I can? And then all of a sudden it works itself out where you're like, right, I'm getting comfortable, I'm getting confident. And that's literally every single step, from high school to college to USL2, USL2 to Northern Ireland to here. It's been these little adjustments, and you just figure it out. And at the end of the day, it's still just soccer. It is just soccer.
Yeah. But like Omar, I think you would agree with this. Like, you're never ready. You're never ready to play at the next level, because you've never been there before.
Yeah. I think, again, that's why organizations that have done well over the years are successful, and organizations that have not done well, you can see their track record of how they treat new players, young players. And, we'll talk about the Lakers, for example. I mean, I use sports, different sports all the time, but, for Lonzo Ball, for example, oh, my mom, sorry. Mom just called me. Lonzo Ball, like D'Angelo Russell, they gave him the keys right away, and they're expecting, because it's a winning culture, they're expecting them to come in, and they're going to be the number one guy. They're going to be the go-to guy. And as we saw with both those guys, they got shipped out within 1 or 2 years because they put too much pressure. I think we look at Golden State Warriors, for example, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, before they ever won all the championships, the organization protected them and gave them the time to grow, but an understanding of like, look, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Understand that we're trying to build something here. We're trying to build a culture where you guys are going to be winners in a few years. So we're going to give you guys the opportunity to continue to fail and fail and fail, but let's try and progress little by little throughout that whole thing. So I think when it comes to, even Frankie Amaya, for example, I'm sure you can probably test this. When he first got signed as the #1 overall pick for Cincy, I thought he was going to be the go-to guy, do great things, and then he kind of fell off a little bit, and they kind of protected him. And then he
went on loan first. He went on loan.
USL. Yeah, I think, or with OC, I think. And then, little by little, he made his way back to Cincinnati and had some good games this year. Scored a goal in the in Orlando, and I think that after that gave him some confidence. But I think, again, if we can understand the history of sports and understand the history of a winning culture and the front offices that have done so well, and as goalkeeper coaches understand that and really pick off of that and influence that, then we can have young goalkeepers that we come in. I mean, I'm sure Jack can attest to this too. It's like, Bobby, he brought you in because he saw potential in you, not because he just needed someone to fill a gap or fill a role and just have you in for, the season and then let you go. But it's more like he saw some potential in you. And then from there, it's like, how well can we best serve that potential and get that potential to the next level? So we can either sell you off and then you get a better opportunity somewhere else and do better and great things there, or get you ready to go like Frankie and get him little by little to the point where we saw the potential in you and now we're just grooming it to get to that next level. So I think as goalkeeper coaches, we can do a better job of helping that culture, whether in training or as they progress on a day-to-day basis.
Bobby, I got a question for you because there's obviously a debate over this, and there is no right or wrong, by the way. And I also want to stress that whenever people make comments on social media, guys, there's no right or wrong. These are just opinions. It's subjective. There is literally gray, so much gray. So don't just take anything as gospel from anybody, and let's all try to grow together. Anyway, that's just my little rant for right now. But I want to say is some people believe that it's better to go on loan your second year at a club than your first year at a club because you need to learn what the club is all about and what the environment is all about before you leave the club to get playing time. Do you agree with that?
My answer is going to be, it really depends on the situation. I mean, look, it all depends on the outcome too. You can look at something with hindsight and then say, oh, you should have done this and this year and this there. But to be honest with you, it really won't make a difference overall. If you go on your loan your first year, you don't get to know what the club's about. You don't get to know that environment, which is a negative, but then you're getting playing time. If you don't go on loan the first year, you get the experience of the club, but you don't get a lot of playing time. So these are trade-offs where it's like, well, it doesn't really know, who knows? So for me, I mean, I don't really think, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it really isn't a matter of this is the right way, this is the wrong way, because it's all going to matter about the individual itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very situational.
You say it's okay.
No,
you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, it's very situational. I think, again, there is a reason. And if you look at the trends of who has been successful over the years in the MLS, women's side as well, NWSL, you'll start to see a trend of the best goalkeepers and the goalkeepers who have had, long careers. They have extremely, extremely strong mindsets where even we see Steve Clark, for example, even after his Columbus blunder in the playoffs, but it was Columbus, right? We lost to Portland. Yeah. So he even after that blunder, he kind of fell off a little bit and we saw him kind of go through his trials and tribulations, and then he came back and now he's a starter at Portland. And then he got dropped for Antonella. Then he came back and he was a starter at Portland again. So again, you start seeing trends of the strong-minded goalkeepers who take situations that may not be favorable for somebody like myself at the time when I was playing, kind of a weak-minded thing where if it wasn't not given to me, but the opportunity wasn't clear, then I would kind of be like, okay, we'll see what happens. But there are goalkeepers who go, you know what, this is an uncomfortable situation. I don't care. I'm going to step in and make it uncomfortable for the person that I'm going up against. And I think that's what you need to have, that strong mentality. And I'm not going to back down from anything. And the person who I'm going up against, if they're going to come with full force, I'm going to come with even more force. So I think that's what if Bobby, if I'm trying to, piece together what you're saying, is that situations you can always prove from one side to the other. You can always say, yeah, leaving in your second year because you have an understanding of the club is probably the best thing, or going to USL is one thing. You can be successful in different ways, but it just comes down to the person and the character of that person.
I just go ahead, Bobby.
Oh, I would just say, if a goalkeeper, or you ever speak to somebody that says my downfall was that I didn't go on loan my first year, then they were never going to be successful anyway.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
I was just going to say, because the number one reason, because we were talking earlier in regards to the U.S. national team, we were talking about, the baby Nats, little guy. Well, they're not that little. They're pretty big guys, but they're young. They're young. And one of the older guys out there, and which is crazy because he's still crazy young, Zach Steffen, the big argument that everyone's given is like, oh, well, he's at City. He's never going to play. He's never going to play. He's going to hurt the U.S. national team. It's going to hurt the U.S. national team because he's never going to play. Again, it's situational. If you're given the opportunity to go and train at Manchester City, the scrimmages that you're getting, the closed door matches, the cup matches that you're getting with the guys that you're playing with is just it's something that you're probably never going to be able to replicate almost anywhere in the world. So, you have to take that into consideration. I think another thing too, that for anybody who's listening out there or watching right now, that I would say too, is that if you come from the academy of that club that you sign with as a professional, there's less of a need to learn the club, because you already know the club. Because if you've been at Real Salt Lake, you've been at Real Salt Lake. If you've been at Red Bull, Bobby, you can attest to this. If you've been at Red Bull, those 11s train the same way as that first team does. They're plug and play. So you don't need an acclimation environment. You can go and on loan to a League One or League Two team and do fine.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts.
And Mike, I think sorry to add on to that point before we move on, but I think again, I think it was Todd Hofford. I spoke with him recently, and he was telling me that, why is it such a bad thing for a young goalkeeper who is seen, let's say, number one in the recruiting class? You see it all the time in college football. Even with Trevor Lawrence, for example, the guy at Clemson, he's kind of like a LeBron James in a sense. He stepped in, had all this expectation, and then won a national championship his freshman year. And then now you have somebody who was a 5-star recruit who's sitting behind him, and Trevor Lawrence goes down, and now he comes in and plays. But that 5-star recruit, he's a 5-star recruit for a reason. 6'5", huge build. He was seen as the next big thing. But now, if he wants to have a long career, how important is the fact that he came to Clemson as a quarterback, sat behind Trevor Lawrence, and now the next 2-3 years, because he had to sit back and then fine tune certain habits and things like that, like Bobby said, going into Cincy, how important is that going to set him up for the future? So I think if we can kind of reshape the perspective on sitting as the number 2 in college, or being the number 1 recruit and then coming to a college and being that number 2 for the first season, because there's a senior who's already been doing it again, who has a little bit more acclimation, understanding of the program and what they need from their starting goalkeeper. Why is that so bad? I think if we can start kind of restructuring that conversation, and now we see with Zach Steffen, I think maybe he could be the catalyst of that, is understanding that, okay, he's not the number 1, but he's playing in a system right now with Pep Guardiola, which is very, very similar to the system we want in the national team now. So with Berhalter, so how can we change the perspective and reshape that narrative to seeing it as a good thing rather than something that's so negative?
Yeah. I agree. I agree completely right there.
And sorry to everybody else who's probably not a college football fan or college
No. I was going to say you and Rob Stone.
I love talking about.
No. You and Rob Stone should start your own college football /soccer podcast at the same time, because I think you guys are the two people that know college football and soccer at the same time. Honestly, I used to be more into college football until, I don't know, every game was canceled every other weekend. That kind of ruined college football for me a little bit. The NBA, on the other hand, they had things on lock, so I'm still a big NBA fan. I will say college basketball, though, this year, because there was no March Madness. I made a joke about this actually on Twitter. Yeah, because I was like, these might as well have been fictional characters in Dynasty mode for me on 2K, because but it was a fun draft last night. Bobby's like, is this a goalkeeping podcast? Well, awesome, guys. Well, we'll be going for a while right now. Bobby, first off, thanks for taking the time, man, and thanks for being open and honest about the situation too. I think that's really cool, and because I think a lot of young goalkeepers can learn from when pros like yourself come on and you're honest about the situation, and you're honest about what you went through, the positives and the negatives. I think we just get much more out of it that way. So thank you for being willing to be open like that. If anybody else out there wants to connect with you, maybe they're a general manager for an MLS team, maybe they're a young goalkeeper, looking for advice, where's the best place to connect?
Any social media platform, Instagram, Twitter. My handle is R Edwards GK. It's kind of my whole thing through everything. Find me on there.
Oh my gosh. And by the way, guys, I just want to give a plug for Jack Stern at FC Cincinnati, because, he does a great job. Guys, really check out the stuff that Omar did with him this summer, and then also check out his own personal stuff. Just really, really phenomenal mind. And I know it's been a difficult time with him because, obviously with a baby and stuff like that, it makes things a little bit difficult, but he's still pretty active on social media. So try to connect with him if you can. Remember, guys, check out Omar Zeenni's amazing content at ProGK Academy _ on YouTube, ProGK Academy. A lot of cool things in the works right there. Contact at Inside the 18. That's the number 18media.com. If you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.